One phone call from Luka Doncic just turned the entire NBA landscape upside down. While most fans were sleeping, the Lakers quietly pulled off one of the most unexpected signings of the summer, and it all started with Luka personally reaching out to convince a former Defensive Player of the Year to join their championship chase. What happened next would shock everyone, including the player himself. This isn't just another free agency story. It's about how one conversation exposed the brutal reality of modern NBA business and revealed exactly how desperate the Lakers have become to fix their glaring weaknesses. Marcus Smart never saw this coming. Just months ago, he was trapped on the worst team in the NBA, watching his career spiral into chaos while playing meaningless games for a franchise that had completely given up. The Washington Wizards had lost 67 games, posted the league's worst record, and made it crystal clear they'd rather develop young players than compete with veterans. Smart found himself in basketball purgatory, collecting paychecks on a team that viewed his veteran presence as an obstacle to their tanking mission. The Wizards didn't just bench Smart, they made it obvious they wanted him gone. His minutes dwindled, his role diminished, and whispers around the organization suggested they were actively shopping him to anyone willing to take on his contract. When negotiations for a buyout began, Washington couldn't agree to terms fast enough. They were essentially paying Smart millions of dollars to disappear, making it clear that one of the league's most respected defenders had become completely unwanted. But that's when Luka Doncic stepped in with a recruitment pitch that nobody expected. The Lakers superstar didn't just make a casual call to Smart's agent or send a text message like most players do. He picked up the phone personally, dialed Smart's number, and spent significant time explaining exactly why he wanted him in Los Angeles. This wasn't some generic recruiting pitch about playing in a big market. Luka got specific about Smart's role, his value, and how he could help the Lakers finally get over the championship hump. Doncic told Smart that LA desperately needed his defensive leadership and playoff experience. He explained how Smart's ability to guard multiple positions would solve major problems in their rotation. Most importantly, Luka made it clear this wasn't about finding a cheap veteran minimum player. They genuinely believed Smart could be a difference maker in their title pursuit. The personal attention from one of the league's biggest stars hit differently than generic interest from front office executives. The timing couldn't have been more perfect for both sides. Smart was coming off one of the most humiliating stretches of his entire career, while the Lakers were dealing with their own defensive nightmares that had cost them playoff positioning multiple times. Their perimeter defense had been absolutely torched by opposing guards, and losing Dorian Finney-Smith to Houston in free agency left a massive hole in their rotation that needed immediate attention. But Smart's journey to this moment has been nothing short of a complete disaster. 2 years ago, he was living his dream in Boston, the emotional heartbeat of a Celtics team that came within 2 wins of capturing an NBA championship. He had spent 9 grueling years building his legacy in Boston, transforming from a raw rookie into the first guard to win Defensive Player of the Year since Gary Payton accomplished the feat back in 1996. Smart wasn't just another player in Boston. He was the culture. His diving for loose balls, taking charges, and screaming at teammates became the identity of those Celtics teams. Fans wore his jersey with pride, knowing they were supporting someone who gave everything he had every single night. His number 36 seemed destined to hang in the TD Garden rafters alongside legends like Larry Bird and Paul Pierce. Then everything fell apart in the most brutal way possible. The Celtics shocked the entire basketball world by trading their beloved defensive anchor to Memphis in a complicated 3-team deal that brought Kristaps Porzingis to Boston. Smart later admitted publicly that he wished the Celtics had handled his departure completely differently, revealing that the way it went down left him absolutely heartbroken and feeling betrayed by the organization he had poured his soul into for nearly a decade. The trade wasn't just business, it felt deeply personal to Smart and completely blindsided him. He had restructured contracts to help Boston's salary cap situation, taken on tough defensive assignments without complaint, and sacrificed individual statistics for team success. In return, the Celtics shipped him out of town without warning, choosing a big man who had injury concerns over their proven defensive leader who had helped carry them to the finals. The Memphis experiment was supposed to be Smart's fresh start, a chance to prove he could be more than just a role player on someone else's championship team. The Grizzlies had given up 3 valuable first-round picks to acquire him, signaling they viewed Smart as a crucial piece of their championship puzzle. General manager Zach Kleiman publicly praised Smart's leadership and defensive versatility, suggesting Memphis finally had the veteran presence they needed to make a deep playoff run. Instead, the Memphis chapter became the most expensive mistake in Grizzlies franchise history. Smart battled a series of nagging injuries throughout his time in Memphis, managing to play just 39 games out of a possible 133 contests across 2 complete seasons. The team that had surrendered 3 first-round picks to acquire him watched their massive investment crumble before their eyes as Smart spent more time in street clothes than in uniform. The injuries weren't just bad luck, they seemed to pile on top of each other in the worst possible way. Finger injuries, ankle problems, and various other nagging issues kept Smart on the sidelines while the Grizzlies desperately needed his defensive presence and veteran leadership. Each game he missed made the trade look worse, and Memphis fans began questioning whether their front office had made a catastrophic miscalculation. Kleiman, who had built a stellar reputation for smart trades and savvy roster moves, later admitted this was one of his biggest blunders as an executive. The Grizzlies essentially paid $50 million for Marcus Smart to play less than 30% of their games over 2 seasons. When they finally dumped his contract to Washington at the trade deadline, it felt like waving the white flag and admitting complete defeat on one of the most disastrous trades in recent memory. The numbers were absolutely staggering. Memphis gave up multiple first-round picks for a player who couldn't stay healthy, couldn't contribute consistently, and ultimately became a massive financial burden they were desperate to unload. Smart's per-game salary during his Memphis tenure was among the highest in NBA history when you factored in how few games he actually played. Washington was supposed to be Smart's chance at redemption, an opportunity to prove his value on a team that might actually need his veteran presence. Instead, it became his absolute rock bottom. The Wizards had posted the worst record in the entire NBA, losing games by embarrassing margins while their young players learned hard lessons about professional basketball. Smart found himself on a roster that had completely given up on competing. The Wizards were in full development mode, prioritizing minutes for rookies and second-year players while veterans like Smart watched from the bench or played garbage time minutes. It became painfully obvious that Washington viewed his presence as an obstacle to their tanking mission rather than an asset to their future plans. Playing for a franchise in full tank mode was torture for someone like Smart, who had spent his entire career competing at the highest level. Watching young players get priority minutes while experienced veterans were pushed aside, Smart realized he was wasting away on a roster that actively didn't want him there. The competitive fire that had defined his entire career was being extinguished by meaningless games and obvious tanking strategies. The buyout negotiations moved incredibly quickly because Washington knew they had absolutely no use for a 30-year-old defensive specialist on a rebuilding team focused entirely on developing their lottery picks. They agreed to pay Smart millions of dollars to go away, officially making him one of the most expensive players to be waived in NBA history. For a former Defensive Player of the Year who had reached the NBA Finals, it represented the ultimate professional humiliation. The buyout process itself was a reminder of how brutal NBA business could be. Smart had to negotiate his own exit from a team that clearly didn't want him, essentially paying his own way out of basketball purgatory. The Wizards made it clear they'd rather eat salary to remove him from their roster than find creative ways to utilize his championship experience and defensive expertise. That's when Luka Doncic completely changed everything with one perfectly timed phone call. While teams like Phoenix and Milwaukee were also interested in Smart's services and had initiated preliminary conversations, Doncic's personal recruitment made all the difference in the world. He didn't delegate this responsibility to coaches or front office executives, he handled it himself, showing Smart exactly how much the Lakers valued his potential contribution. The conversation wasn't just about basketball strategy or contract details. Luka explained his vision for how Smart would fit into their championship plans, detailing specific scenarios where Smart's defensive versatility would be crucial in playoff matchups. He talked about the Lakers' defensive struggles and how Smart's presence could immediately upgrade their perimeter defense and provide the veteran leadership they desperately needed in clutch moments. Most importantly, Doncic made it clear this wasn't about finding a cheap veteran minimum player to fill out their roster. They genuinely believed Smart could be a difference maker in their title pursuit, someone who could contribute meaningful minutes in important games rather than just providing emergency depth. The respect and specific vision that Luka communicated hit completely differently than generic interest from other organizations. The Lakers desperately needed Smart's exact skill set after losing key defensive pieces in free agency. Dorian Finney-Smith's departure to Houston had left a massive hole in their perimeter defense, and they had struggled all season to find reliable defenders who could handle quick guards and versatile forwards. Smart's ability to guard multiple positions and switch seamlessly in pick-and-roll situations addressed multiple problems simultaneously. Smart had conducted positive conversations with all three interested teams, but Luka's personal touch made Los Angeles the obvious choice. The opportunity to play alongside one of the NBA's brightest young stars, combined with the Lakers' championship pedigree and massive market appeal, created an absolutely irresistible package. After hitting rock bottom in Washington, Smart could suddenly envision himself competing for titles again. The signing represents far more than just a roster addition for the Lakers. They're acquiring a proven winner who has been to the NBA Finals and knows what championship-level intensity looks like. They're getting a defensive specialist who can guard everyone from point guards to power forwards, providing the versatility that modern playoff basketball demands. Most importantly, they're adding a veteran leader who understands what it takes to compete at the highest level when every possession matters. For Smart, this represents the ultimate redemption story. From being unwanted by two different franchises to getting personally recruited by one of the league's biggest stars, his career has come full circle in the most unexpected way possible. The player who was deemed too expensive by Memphis and completely unwanted by Washington is now viewed as a crucial missing piece for a Lakers team with legitimate championship aspirations. But this story reveals something much bigger about how modern NBA free agency actually works. Star players are no longer content to let front offices handle all the recruiting while they focus solely on their individual preparation. They're taking matters into their own hands, making personal pitches to the players they want as teammates and actively shaping roster construction through direct relationships. Doncic's call to Smart demonstrates exactly how much influence superstars now wield in team building. It's not enough to be a great individual player anymore. The best stars understand they need to be recruiters, leaders, and talent evaluators who can identify which veterans can help their championship pursuit. Luka's willingness to personally reach out shows the kind of leadership and commitment that championship teams are built upon. The Lakers' championship odds just received a massive boost, not just because they added Smart's defensive prowess, but because they demonstrated they have a superstar willing to do whatever it takes to win. Luka's recruitment call shows he understands that individual greatness means nothing without team success, and he's prepared to invest personal time and energy into building the right roster around him. Sometimes one phone call really can change everything. Smart's journey from Boston legend to Memphis disappointment to Washington exile finally ends with him joining a team that actually wants him there and has specific plans for maximizing his contributions. After 2 years of trades, injuries, and disappointments, he's finally found a home where his skills are genuinely valued and his championship experience is desperately needed. The defensive anchor who once helped the Celtics reach the NBA Finals is ready to do the same thing for the Lakers, bringing playoff experience and defensive versatility to a team that has struggled with both. This isn't just another free agency signing, it's a statement that the Lakers are absolutely serious about competing for championships and willing to make the moves necessary to get there. When your superstar is personally recruiting veteran players to join the team, it sends a crystal clear message to the entire league that Los Angeles isn't settling for mediocrity or moral victories. They're building something special. One strategic phone call at a time, and Marcus Smart's arrival might be exactly what they needed to finally get over the championship hump.